I'm a co-founder of Danish Crowdfunding Association. Thank you all for coming and participating today. I'm going to tell you something about crowdfunding, and afterwards the two guys here, Toge and Reiner, they will tell you something about how they work with crowdfunding in the practical world. I will provide some of the theory. Yes, I have a theoretical background. I just graduated 2 months ago from Copenhagen Business School with a master's in finance and accounting. And actually, when you have a financial background, you could ask, why do you then jump into crowdfunding? Why do you go all in crowdfunding? And I've been walking around for a very long time discussing with myself, what should I write my thesis about? And most people from the education I was on, or the program I was on, they wrote something about, most often it was a valuation of a company. Most of them were headed for a career within trading and investment and so on. And actually, I was on the same direction. I worked on at therefor as a portfolio manager in a program called Millionaires Club. I don't know if you have heard Millionaires Club every morning, 9 o'clock on therefor. I was in the evening program. I got 100,000 kroner and half a year, and I was supposed to trade as much as possible, invest, and make this money grow. That was that was the sport. And at some point in time, everything culminated with my thesis, and I found out that trading and investing, you're not really adding any value. Yes, when you invest, then there happens something in the market, a little slight price movement within a nanosecond, and that's it. Basically just speculating. I want to go beyond these charts, beyond the value charts, beyond the prices, the place where the value is actually created. And in order to go beyond the prices and beyond the screens and the charts and the reports and all that stuff, you have to move back in time, back to the moment where the projects are actually created, where the value is created, where the idea is happening, the moment where some sort of value is being created, and the moment where someone is actually investing in this idea for the very first time. That was really fascinating because something is happening within this space. Right now, in this year, 2014, is going to be the crowdfunding year of all time, according to what do you call it? The consulting agencies, trend hunters, governments. So I chose crowdfunding and founded Danish Crowdfunding Association together with Michael Eis. He's the founder of Boomerang, which is the first crowdfunding platform in Denmark. The outline is I want to start telling you something about the evolution of crowdfunding, some funny parallels to our history, some about how crowdfunding works. We'll also share something about social media, and mostly with a scientific angle. And I will also share some funny stories from the project landscape. And finally, if we have time enough, I will share some of my insights to the regulatory environment of crowdfunding. That is one of the big issues and one of the reasons why we founded Danish Crowdfunding Association within the last 2 months. So the evolution of crowdfunding. If we go back in time, I think we can find many similarities to taxes, the tax system. The tax system is it's a means of crowdfunding great projects for the greater good, right? And one of the first historical evidences of crowdfunding taxes from people was actually this way back, 3000 BC. People had to pay 20% of their crops to the great pharaoh. Most of them were pretty poor, and they didn't have any crops, so they paid with labor instead, and that was invested in this beautiful pyramid. Actually, we also have some tax crowdfunding examples from our own history. So why am I showing this stone? have any of you heard about Danes Guild? Danes Guild, that's a pretty funny concept. So when one of the kings or the høvdinger from a tribe in Denmark decided to get some money, crowdfund some money, it wasn't really through taxes. They could just go on Viking or travel out, rob a city, or rob another country, and that's what they did. They went to England, in this case, and told the English king that if you don't give us 10,000 silver coins, we will rape your wife. So what do you think? And he was like, yeah, okay, well, here you go. So they went home with their 10,000 silver coins, and they reached their funding target, right? That was kind of a crowdfunding campaign they went on, and they raised this stone as a memorial or as a symbol of the funding target. And it actually says with the Danish kroner, it's raised in Sweden, that we reached our funding target, we got our 10,000 silver coins from the English king, and maybe we return another year to get some more. We also have other examples, of course. Patronage. I don't know what the word is in Danish, patronage. You have a patron. Many artists had patrons like H.C. Andersen. Also Mozart, Beethoven. They all depended on patronage from royal families and wealthy people, wealthy friends. And of course, charity, as most of you know, charity, donations, sponsorships. So what's the difference between all these examples here and crowdfunding, as maybe, I suppose some of you have seen it today, crowdfunding on Kickstarter, crowdfunding on Indiegogo? I think one of the big differences is technology. I think that's the main difference. We are in the information age. We've been in it for only, about 13 years or something. And that which makes it, the market very transparent. You know who you're actually funding. You're much more close to the people you're funding. There's much more visibility, and you have the ability to actually finally to put the money or your money where your heart is, and that's a really big step. The other thing is it's being decentralized, so to speak. So you don't have one entity, a king of a tribe or a government collecting all the funds and selecting some projects which they like. No, this selection mechanism is put on the crowd. The crowd will select which projects deserves to be funded, right? So it's decentralized financing. The other thing is you get a reward, and it's optional. You're not forced to fund a project. And the last thing I would mention is scales. With the technology, with the internet, you can actually scale it up. It's not just a few sponsors you have. You have maybe thousands or 10,000s of sponsors because of the internet. So I think one very interesting example is the Statue of Liberty from 1886. She was raised in that year. And the US government, they had one problem. They couldn't really they couldn't really finance the rising of this beautiful statue. So they were very close to quit it. But what happened was during the industrial times and so on, it was a little easier to reach a lot of people, or the mass media. You had in New York, a New York newspaper called The World, and the publisher of that newspaper, he decided to actually crowdfund the Statue of Liberty. So he asked everyone, if you crowdfund, even $1, whatever, you will get your name in this newspaper. And that was really interesting for people to get the name in the newspaper if they crowdfunded this statue. So they did, and yes, there she is today. Another example, one thing I forgot actually, was regarding US and crowdfunding. I've been in US one time, and one thing that really struck me was the tipping culture, the tipping system. That it's, if you don't, when you walk down the street, if you don't donate money, if you don't tip everyone around you, you're basically the greatest asshole on earth, right? So crowdfunding is just really a huge part of their DNA. So one of the big questions is, okay, it works in the US. Does it also work in Europe? Because tipping is not really a part of our DNA. We have our welfare system to take care of these kind of tipping. But yes, it works in Europe. I would say the first example of crowdfunding in Europe was from UK. This is a rock band from 1997, and their manager told them that, okay, guys, you're getting old, and it's over. Get a job. I can't pay you any salaries anymore. It's done. So no more albums, no more. Actually, they want to go on a tour, on a road, what do you call it, a tour in US, but that they couldn't afford it. So they just kicked out their manager and they reached out to their 6,000 fans. They had a huge mail database with fans, and they mailed all of them because mailing was possible. So they mailed them and said, hey, do you want to buy our album now? We haven't created it, but just, do you want to buy it? And they were like, yeah, okay. So they raised $60,000, and they got on track again. Someone later on got inspired by this concept, artist share, and someone would claim that they actually had they had the first idea of crowdfunding artists. We have also seen other forms of financing within lending, peer-to-peer lending. So you loan or lend money to projects in the third world, and for the greater good. It's more like charity. We have a similar concept in Denmark, actually, from 2006, MyC4, and then someone took the next step, lending money just between you and me, instead of lending money from the bank. And one of the benefits of that is that there's no intermediary, so it's more cheap for me to have this kind of loan, and the guy who's lending me the money, he's actually earning a lot more compared to having those money in a normal bank. Then in 2008, Indiegogo actually started the reward-based crowdfunding concept. The year after, Kickstarter came, which we will hear a lot more about later on. And then something very interesting happened in UK. Crowdcube. They are I would say they are the largest equity crowdfunding platform in the world. And what they did, they decided to, instead of giving you a product reward or anything else, if you invest or if you donate anything in one of these companies, you will actually get a share of the company. So you are actually a real investor. You're not just a donor anymore. So we've suddenly, within the past 5 years, we've seen a very interesting transformation from music, from this non-profit cultural world into the financial world. We've seen a fusion from music crowdfunding into this really business-oriented crowdfunding, where you're actually focusing on some profits. And in Sweden, they did the same on Funded by Me. You can also equity crowdfund projects in Sweden. Boomerang in Denmark, reward-based crowdfunding platform. That's actually our own project. We are crowdfunding, Danish Crowdfunding Association. In Germany, they made a mix of lending-based crowdfunding and equity crowdfunding. And I'll get back to the equity lending and all that stuff later. And in US, they introduced Fundable, which is equity crowdfunding as well, just in US. They have some rules. If you and I want to buy a share in a business in US, actually you have to be an accredited investor, which means you have to be really rich. And that's a problem. So they've been working on that problem for a while, and they introduced a law actually, the Jobs Act, it's called. I'm not sure if you heard about that, but they signed the Jobs Act in 2012, which will allow normal American citizens to invest in startups. And in the UK in 2012, now it says Kickstarter, but look away from that. Sears, they opened in UK. They are a little similar to Crowdcube. The only difference is that you only have profit rights. So when you invest in a company, you will only get a share of the profit. You're not really an owner, so you don't have voting rights, for instance, at their General Assembly. So let's break it down in 3 phases. The past 6 years. First of all, the term crowdsourcing was introduced in 2006. And the best example of crowdsourcing, I would say, is Wikipedia. And that's where you're tapping the wisdom of the crowd. And it worked. It worked. People are not, throwing a lot of bullshit on Wikipedia. You are actually using it as a very reliable source in today's media. The world took the next step into the age of crowdfunding, where you are tapping the wealth of the crowd, and it also seems to work. And we have examples as Kickstarter and Indiegogo, who are the largest crowdfunding platforms in the world, and they truly got momentum in 2009. And if we look back on 2012, then we start to see a landscape of many, many different platforms. We have around 400 or 500 crowdfunding platforms all around the world within donations or reward, where you get a product or you get something. Maybe you get a rate, some equity, a share in the company, or a hybrid, something, just a mix, a security, a paper. You buy a paper that says you will get that, you will get that, you will get that, all different kind of rights. And the market, the size of this market is, or it was in 2012, 2.7 billion USD. And in 2013, it has been estimated to reach 5 billion. So that's pretty remarkable growth, actually. And you can just question yourself, how large will it get in 2014? The hype on Google Trends, if you look at it, you can see that in 2012, it actually picked up pretty much. It doesn't work. Yeah. And that was because one of the reasons was Obama's sudden attention on crowdfunding. And the fact that he signed the Jobs Act, the Jumpstart Our Businesses Act in 2012. And it's not been, actually, the law hasn't been implemented yet in the US, but they're working on it in their, the SEC, security, what is it called? Securities Exchange Commission. So how crowdfunding works? Very short, we have to understand the crowd. It's not, it's not just donors, it's also investors, it's also backers, right? But it's also some kind of ambassadors, because they represent you, they represent your community, your culture. They are kind of your missionaries. They tell their friends to buy your products as well. And they're also some kind of advisors. Most of the people I've spoke with, they use the crowd as advisors. You will see in the comment field on each campaign that a lot of funny and weird and very creative ideas are brought up by the crowd. And finally, of course, they are also customers. So you have this very mixed crowd, and there are very little studies, very little research about the crowd. Who is the crowd investor compared to the venture capitalist or the angel investor or normal donors? Who is the crowd investor? That is one of the biggest questions right now, and we have very little access to data because most platforms, they don't want to share this data. So just to give you an example very quick, this is a new campaign they opened 1 week ago. The founder, the CEO is Danish. And they got very, very quickly, they got 10,000 backers. The goal was 260,000, but they are already overfunded. It is, wireless headphones, and I suppose most of you would actually love to get rid of the wires, so I do understand the success of this project. It's already number 20 most funded on Kickstarter within 1 week, so I expect that this has some great potential. I'm not sure if it will end on the Pebble level. I'm not sure if you heard about the Pebble watch, but they have the record. I think was for 40 or 50 million kroner or something. So what these guys do, or another very important mechanism of a crowdfunding campaign, besides from the days you have to reach a certain goal, that is the incentive structure and the signaling. I will divide them into two. You can have certain product rights. So let's say if you pledge $2 or more, thank you. If you pledge something like $15 or more, then you will get a $25 discount the day you buy our product or our headset. But if you pay this much, you will be the first among 1,000 backers who get these wireless headphones. And of course, I want to be the first in the world to run around with these headphones. The other way of creating incentives for people to crowdfund you is profit rights. And you offer them an equity. The total crowd, all the backers who have invested in this project, they will get 10%. This is an example from Cedars. So this means that they will only get 10% of the profit. They will not get 10% of the voting rights. It's different on Crowdcube. In that situation, you're actually an owner. You will receive a stock which you can hang on your wall at home. Another very important incentive is SIZE, the Seed Enterprise Investment Scheme in UK, which gives you some really interesting tax benefits when you invest in startups as a retail investor, as a private investor. You don't have these tax benefits in Denmark. Then the other very important question, that is the science of social media and crowdfunding. And that has been one of the big questions in the young crowdfunding researcher community, scientific community, so to speak, that what if your social network affected the funding cycle?
It was the slide before you said that there are some incentives in that country, I don't remember which one, the US?
UK.
The UK, okay. There's some incentives to invest in startups and that they have some taxes advantages, but since you're from the Danish Crowdfunding Association, I would like to know if you're doing something to change that in Denmark.
Definitely. That's the number, that's one of the top priorities, so I promise you, of course. Actually, they have really interesting tax incentives in Sweden as well. I was told by Søren, he's the head of Crowdcube Denmark. He told me that if you invest as a private investor in Sweden in a startup, you can deduct, I think it was 600,000 Swedish kroner from your tax account. So it's it makes a pretty big difference compared to investing in startups in Denmark. But the question was, does your social network have any effect on your funding success? And if it does, then you could speculate something like this, make an evaluation of your channels. These are the channels I use myself. I don't use Instagram and other channels or Pinterest. I would calculate how many connections, fans, followers, and so on I have on my own personal channels, my team's channels, and through my company's channels, our Facebook group or our Twitter page and so on. And then I will try to estimate how many of this LinkedIn crowd, Facebook crowd, and my followers would convert into actual investors. And finally, I would be able to calculate or make some kind of estimation of what is my total reach? How many investors or crowd investors can I expect within my own network? And is it possible to make these calculations? And the straight answer is yes, because social networks does have a positive effect on your funding success. According to Giudici et al. From 2013, he made a study of 461 projects showing that the quality of your social network, the strength or the size, the structure and so on of your social network, it's called social capital, it does have an effect on your funding success. This guy, he made a really huge study of 48,000 projects, and he analyzed the number of Facebook friends that each entrepreneur had, showing that there's also a relation between funding success and your Facebook friends. And I also made my own studies within equity crowdfunding, because there haven't been made such a study yet. And at that time, there was only 130 projects in Europe. But I could point to a few examples where it actually benefits you. If you're one of the top tiers, or if you have a relatively large LinkedIn and Facebook, Twitter network, then it might increase your chances of funding success within equity crowdfunding. Another very important aspect about social is crowd due diligence. That was a term introduced in 2013 by one of the, I would say, the best researchers in crowdfunding. And crowd due diligence means it's just the same as the due diligence venture capitalists do or any other investor do prior to investing. In this case, it's done by the crowd. And how does that go about? I would say, if you read the comment field on a project, I would say that's the best example of a due diligence. Everyone analyze the project and they give feedback, and if they notice something which is wrong, they will flag it, which prevents fraud and so on. So, has there been any examples of fraud within crowdfunding? Yes, there have. But very few, actually. Very few, compared to the thousands of projects that has been funded until now. I can only mention 8 max. So, has there been any fraud cases within equity crowdfunding? And the reason is no. I haven't found any yet. And I am definitely looking for just one case of fraud. Because if there is one, then the whole industry will be threatened. So people is definitely paying attention to fraud. The funding cycle. I also want to dig a little bit into that. This is number of days. On Kickstarter, you can put it the funding duration on 60 days. And this is the percentage of target, and you want to reach this line, right? This is the number of the capital inflow during the days and the accumulated amount. And at this day, you reached your goal. And this is the overfunding zone. What I want to illustrate here is how different effects, how you can speculate or how you can analyze this funding cycle and how you can plan it. The first thing you want to do, in theory, is to prepare your round from the start, so it doesn't start empty. So you will have some people ready to invest from the beginning, so you'll start with 10 or 15% from the start. Another thing you also want to avoid is bystander effects, and that means it's also called free rider effects. It means that if I don't see anyone invest, why should I invest? I will wait a little just to see, okay, if they invest, then I'll do it. And if everybody thinks like that, nothing happens. So to avoid this tendency, you will offer early bird premiums or some kind of discounts, telling people if you're the first, you will be first served, best served, and you will get the best price and so on. Another thing to stimulate the inflow is contests. I know that Airtime used contests, telling people if you share this with your friends, then you will be a part of a contest and you can win one of our products. And then at some point, when when you break through the media, when everybody is hearing about you, and starts get some attention that you're actually reaching your funding goal, you're becoming a success, then the tipping point is the tipping point effect, so to call it, started, and that's where the viral effect is coming, and finally the deadline effect. And then you could ask if you actually, and I saw that yesterday at the Airtame presentation, they showed something similar to this, and this was the last investment was really huge, and I was wondering if you just had one more day or 2 more days, what would happen then? That's really interesting. The deadline effect is really interesting. The last thing, I just want to tell you something about the project landscape as last note. Some really weird things that we are picking up during our discussions on Facebook. We have a little Danish Crowdfunding Association. We have a small Facebook group where we share a lot of funny stuff from the crowdfunding world every day. And one of them was this project, a drone, your own personal drone. I think that's cool. It is from Seedmatch in Germany, and they crowdfunded this project with how much? 1.2 million euro, and they got 751 investors, and that's investors, it's not donors. Another funny platform, this is a crowdfunding platform called Experiment. They crowdfund research, and I think this is just, I haven't seen anything similar in the world yet. I would love to see something like this in Denmark. You crowdfund research. It's really hard for researchers and professors and so on to fundraise a project. It takes a lot of time. It's connected with a lot of bureaucracy, or what do you call it, bureaucracy. So they actually solve this problem. One question could be, does Bigfoot exist, or can you find fossils under Copenhagen? And people were like, yeah, let's crowdfund that. Let's dig the ground and find out. So you have all kinds of funny projects on that platform. And something this is also a very funny tendency. Most crowdfunding platforms crowdfund themselves. They have to taste their own medicine. This is an example of Cedars. They crowdfunded 2.5 million within 1 day. And that was a world record, 1 day. And everybody just went crazy. This is another final funny example. It helps, definitely. It's some guys from Sweden who invented this device you put on their dog's head, and it tells you what it feels. Maybe it works. I don't know. Crowdfund it, and you will see if it works. And another thing, yes, crowdfund a cow. You can actually find everything in the world, and if it gets the full funding, then you will a guy in Ghana, he will receive this cow, a real cow. Crowd mortgage, crowdfunding of property. So just to sum up this these discussions on the crowdfunding landscape. There are projects that you crowdfund optional, and there are projects that you would crowdfund that's not optional. It's an obligation, right? It could be courses, it could be art, it could be research, products, and businesses, right? In the old regime, most of these things was crowdfunded through taxes, so to speak. But in the new regime, within the recent years, you're seeing many of these projects being funded through alternative sources, such as donation crowdfunding, lending crowdfunding, reward, equity, as I've showed you before. I think this pretty much illustrates the movement from one regime to another, and that's the movement that we are calling the Ny Andelsbevægelse. I don't know what it's called in English. There's only one thing that is preventing this movement, and that is the regulation in Denmark. And that's what we are trying to solve. And I don't want to take more of your guys' time. I took 1 minute. So I look forward to discuss the regulation in Denmark with you later on. Yes, thank you very much. Questions, we'll take questions after your talk. Thank you.
Hello?
Oh, perfect.
Nice.
Can you hear me? All right, first of all, thank you for having us, Frederick.
Yeah.
And thank you for being here. I must admit, it was a very good to see these things. Wished to have seen it a year ago. And I think you will see that like a lot of the things that we've learned or haven't learned, we could have learned from your presentation.
We would even have liked to see it before we made our presentation.
Yeah. So, yeah, that was it. Now we're here to talk about the crowdfunded birth of fingersurfing. Or a more specific title is, if our silly idea can get funded, yours can probably too. And it's both a comment to our idea, which is, we have to admit, it is a bit silly. And we had okay, you're not in saving of the world. But it's also a comment to our background, because we're going to get into that, but our background is not in business or in anything like that. We just had an idea, and we tried it to see if it could happen, and all of a sudden, we had a business. So I think what we want to do is try to inspire you guys who maybe aren't that much in business to don't get afraid of that, because if our silly idea can happen, yours can too. But first of all, a quick thing about us. Then we're going to talk a lot about fingersurfing, which is our idea. I don't know if you know about it, or maybe you even funded it. Yes. And then we're going to talk about why we chose crowdfunding, a little bit about how we got started, and how we got funded. This is mandatories of how to get on Kickstarter, and then some mandatories that we found on how to be successful on Kickstarter. And then a bit about what to do after you get funded, and then a summary, and then we can move to the questions. First of all, that's us. Yeah, now we stand in the wrong sides, but we both have a background in creative fields, and that's basically it. I mean, there's nothing more to say about that, right?
We're not entrepreneurs.
Yeah, exactly. We and I think it's better to just move on to the product, because it's basically it's called fingersurfing. It's surfing for your fingers, and it's a little wooden board. Do you want to talk about it?
Yeah. It all started about like when we were kids, or grown kids, when we were sitting on the back seat of our parents' car, and we were eating peas, and we were throwing it out the window, driving on the road, and suddenly we kind of realized that it was possible to surf on the pea pods. So we fortunately brought a video camera and started filming this little film of us finger surfing, like 2 minutes after we kind of invented it. And then after, like, we got to the summer house and we started, cutting in wood to make boards. And here's like a little walkthrough of the process of how the boards have developed. And first off, we really quickly found out that it was stupid not to have some kind of leash to the board, and that would make like a really short pleasure. And then, inspired from the pea pod, we started like carving into the wood so the fingers would, keep attached to the board. And then we started testing out would it work out to like crumble a little bit of sand on the board, and then we, obviously all of a sudden like surf wax came into the picture, and found out that was the perfect way of both having the surf vibe and the surf smell in the car. But it's been a really long ride, getting to the right design.
I guess it also speaks to, like, we weren't carpenters or master craftsmen when we decided to go with this. We were just people with an idea, and it started. You can see the evolution here, and it ended with Togu is steam bending ash wood and varnishing it, and it's starting to become like quite a crafty thing.
The thing was that when we got funded on Kickstarter, we had to make about 100 boards, and
I think we'll get to that.
yeah, okay, we'll take it later.
Yeah.
Cool.
Because let's go into crowdfunding.
Yeah.
We had the idea, but we didn't really know. We had no idea what to do with it. We had a lot of people who thought it was a funny idea, and we had a lot of people, like our parents, who thought it was a crazy idea. But we still did it when we were fingersurfing. Like when we were driving a car, we still thought it was funny. So we decided to let's test this idea out. And Toke did his bachelor project about it, which gave us the material so we could go present it to investors. And we talked to investors, and we also started looking into crowdfunding. And we actually had investors that would pay money to get us started. But we found that basically, we found that if we do crowdfunding, we get to keep the company, all the percentages. We also figured that if we do crowdfunding, we can test the market without starting up production, which is a very nifty little thing, because you're not normally allowed to do that. You're not allowed to sell a product before you have it. But on a crowdfunding site, you can get the orders before you have the actual production set up. So it was really great to get a proof of concept before you started investing too much time in it. It turned out you actually spent a lot of time on crowdfunding, but it's another story. Another thing is that it's really great, like you also said, great PR. Like if you have something on Kickstarter, I think like we're going to talk about Kickstarter, not the other ones, even though they're also really interesting in all their kinds. But what we found with Kickstarter was that our product is interesting for people all over the world. Like people in Asia have bought it, and people in Brazil have bought it. So there's no reason for us to keep it local or keep it to Europe, for instance. So if we get on Kickstarter, there's loads of
Loads of DDCs.
Yeah.
4,000 lumen.
Yeah. But people check Kickstarter all the time, and other blogs check them, and they look for interesting things to write about. So it's a great way to get our message out. Yeah, and of course it was really fun. Some of the concepts I think we kind of learned these going, but
just a quick thought on the fun part. That we're both from advertising, and one of the things is in advertising is that there's a lot of rules with what you do. And one of the cool things about doing it like this is that you can say and do whatever you like, and there's nobody telling you what to do.
Yeah. And the responsibility is on us as well.
Yeah.
But, the thing is that if you get an investor, you get a lot of knowledge with the money, because he's invested in your company, so he wants us to do good. So he knows a lot about business, and that was actually something we were lacking, because we knew how to draw balls and stuff. And this was something we just had to learn by going. And that takes a lot of time, and it's a lot of trial and error. And the other things is that if you get an investor, you get a pool of money, and then you can use that to PR your product. And we basically had no money to do PR or no money to do anything. But the nicest thing is that there's so many free services out there that it's doable. So we decided to go with the crowdfunding route. And these things are just a bunch of mandatories to get on Kickstarter. They won't approve your concept without having these things. First of all, you have to have a working prototype. You can't just do a mock-up or something like that. You need a real prototype that works. You need a budget. And that's, of course, where we were like, oh, shit, can we make a budget in Photoshop? And like, obviously no. These are just some learnings that we did, because we did make a positive and a negative budget based on information from a factory in China. We actually, if everything went wrong and we had to send the prototype back, and we had to get the package in order and all this, and everything went wrong with the connection there, we would end on $21,000. And we thought that was a bit much to ask for a thing like fingersurfing. It seemed like it could come off as maybe a little bit greedy. So we chose to go for the 15,000 instead as our goal. And there's also the reason that we'd rather have 15,000 and have a successful campaign than almost make 21,000. And then, which also a point that you made on the graph, and we'll get back to that, but we also figured from researching other Kickstarter projects that they got a lot of money after they were funded, so we would rather have more of that time. The shipping part is actually one of those things that you hear horror stories. I don't know if you heard about it, but like there's some horror stories of people forgetting that it costs a lot of money to send stuff all over the world, and people are all over the world. We calculated into the price of the $18 that you would get to buy the board, but it's really important to do the calculations with Post Denmark or whoever sends out the board, so you get the calculations right. One of the things that we did was when we got the prototype, which is basically it's a little fingersurf board, it's a piece of wax, it's a piece of some stickers and a bag. And when we took that to Post Denmark.
It's just when we collected everything, it weighed, was it 51 grams?
Yeah,
precisely. And when it goes under, it's like half the price.
For shipping.
So yeah, for shipping. So we had made the board, used a month on making the wooden boards in hand, and then suddenly we had like the product, and we were sending out, and it would cost like a lot of money more than we thought it was, because it just weighed a little bit too much. But the cool thing was that then we had that was the first boards coming out, and it wasn't 1,000 that we were sending out. So then we just knew we had to cut a little bit off on the wax, so it would weigh a little bit less.
So it's a
we ended up saving a lot of money on that.
Yeah. And it's a good thing to keep in mind. And this is the question that we get asked the most from people, because in order to get on Kickstarter, you need an American bank account or a UK bank account. And there's a lot. Everybody asked about it, and we didn't think about it until we were like pretty much halfway there. So our big $1 million secret was that we found we had an American ex-girlfriend, and to call her up and say, hey, would you mind if potentially $15,000 get into your account? And by the way,
and then cross the fingers that you haven't screwed her over.
Yeah. Did we do something? What we did was we paid her $500 in order to open up an Amazon account and a bank account, so the money would go in her account. And then we added her into the Kickstarter team in order to make it legal.
Which was really cool, because then all of a sudden she's from Puerto Rico and lives in the States, and she's like traveling all over the world. And suddenly she became like an ambassador. So also getting her into the project suddenly created a lot of new people knowing about it and sharing it.
Yeah. So a bunch of, we ended up getting funded. We ended up getting 144%, I think. These are a bunch of learnings that we did that we believe had a lot to do with us actually getting funded. This is quite interesting, because this is our funding process, and it's interesting because it looks exactly like the one that you showed. Our recommendation would be, you had it to, I think, 60 days. Our recommendation would be around 30. Ours lasted 40 because we wanted to hit 2 paydays, so 2 first in the months. We thought that would give us more traction. But the reason why there's because you talked about oh man, we should have just let it go for another 2 years and millionaires. But I think the learning is that you get a lot of money in the beginning and a lot of money after you're funded, and the in between is actually just you biting your nails and being like, what the fuck? Like, you get an app, and you get a backer alert every time somebody actually donates money.
And that's the most dangerous thing in the world.
Yeah.
It's so addictive. It's something you look at when you go to sleep, and it's something you look at when you wake up in the morning, and it's something you look at every fucking 2 seconds of the day. Every time somebody, and also sometimes, you know, you just get a text from your girlfriend, and it's just like, oh shit, it's not backer.
God damn. So, and I think that's also one of the reasons why we wanted to recommend that it's a short period, because it's really a full-time job. Getting getting people to donate, and also it can be exhausting when you have a day and there's just no backers. So it's a good idea to keep it in a time period that's manageable. And the video is probably the most important part of the Kickstarter of your project. I should have learned not to wear purple t-shirt, but it's just important that it shows personality, because people, you know, they invest in a good idea. When they see something like those wireless headphones, it's just like, it's an amazing idea, right? But people also invest in the people as much as the products. So it's good to see that there's somebody behind you, behind the project that you want to back. And it's actually a good idea to not neglect the video and say, I have a cousin that can film, but actually write a script and, you know, make it seem professional. And we worked a lot with the rewards also during the project, because it's a great way to show your personality in your project, and it's a good way to have people talk about your project. If you have funny rewards, like the main thing is, like what we learned is that people want the product. They want to find that reward where they get the product. But then you also want to get the people who don't want to spend $18 on a finger surfboard, but just think it's a fun idea, they want to throw something after it. So what we decided was, for those people, we wanted to give them something because we're grateful for their help, but we can't afford to ship them anything. So we decided to give them a wallpaper or a digital surfboard, which it costs us nothing to send out. And the digital surfboard is basically silly because it's a wallpaper for your phone, and then you can finger surf out the window of a moving car with your phone. And we hope to God we don't get sued on that. But we thought it hopefully just shows some personality and, you know, get people on our team.
People also started writing us with their own pledge possibilities, because they wanted 5 boards or they wanted 10. So so when the project is actually moving, you can keep on adding different kinds of pledges, which is kind of cool. So everybody gets what they want.
Yeah, and as far as I remember, this one is actually a bit cheeky, because we added that within the last week in order to make sure that we had an outlet to make the goal. Because when we were here, we were shitting ourselves. We're like, holy shit, we're never gonna make it. So we're like, we need to. If we're that close to making it, I don't know if it's exactly legal, but it was doable to say, okay, if we add a big reward, we can help have all our friends donate, so we can get the last, you know, $500, so we can make it.
And then never pay them back.
Yes. That's how you make money on Kickstarter. PR is just you can't really underestimate it. Especially how important it is. This we got featured on Carlsberg's Facebook page, and I think that gave us $600 in a day, which is probably, I think it's like 200-300% more than usual. And this is also, I don't know if you can read it, but I'll just say we got featured on Gizmodo, which gave us, I think, around $800 or something. And I think the big learning from this is that we we actually did a bit of preparation. We prepared some press releases, and we're like, great, we'll just send those out. The blogs are going to write about it, and then more blogs and blah blah blah. But the thing is that blogs know what's going on. You know, they know that we want to use them as free media, and they've become they know what they're worth, and if you want to make partnerships with them, you have to pay for it. So all of a sudden we're like, okay, now we just need to do the dirty work. And you're talking about how we got messages from backers like at 3 in the morning, and if you didn't reply, you can tell the story.
It was just responding to everything that comes in is really important. Both backers, just because a lot of people have questions about something, like, for instance, shipping, and do we send boards to Tahiti and stuff, places like that, and just when you respond within a couple of minutes, people just react totally different. It's like it's a friend who's writing you back. That's also one of the things that we've been trying to do all along, is always respond really quickly, and also with the same vibe of our Kickstarter campaign, which is we try to keep it as positive as possible. You saw it in the pledges also. It's really important.
And I think something that worked in our advantage, something we wrote on the first slide, is how our silly project could get funded. That probably worked with us, because we wrote, I saw something on Reddit where people write like, holy shit, this is a real thing. It's a real project you can support. And because it is a product that you wouldn't see probably Mattel or somebody like that go out with. It was like, this could actually be a real thing, and it's a good thing to keep in mind for your Kickstarter idea, that it should be something that feels like it can't be done in any other way. Like if a big corporation with 100 lawyers had this idea, they would never allow it. So this is something that can only exist on the will of the people. But we this is where social media was a huge advantage for us in engaging with the backers and really treating them like people and not like potential customers, and involving them in the process, because we had to choose wax, and a simple thing like the wax
color and scent.
Yeah, color and like the scent, which is really important in surfing. It has to smell right. But we asked that on Facebook, and we could also see a bump there in the rewards. And we got like 100 replies or something. So people really think it's important to have the right color of wax. And that's also interesting to just incorporate people in all aspects of the campaign. We also made little videos. Every time we got a backer, they would get a little video of us celebrating it. Only in the beginning, because then it became we got a backer from XXX. Everybody. But that also just gave some people something to share, and then that they would be more engaged. And all of a sudden, we got funded. So this weird little peapod that we're playing with as kids was now to be a real project and a real product that had to go out. And we're basically like, we've thought till here. And we're like, holy shit, what the hell do we do now? And we decided to write another party, first of all. And once we kind of got over that, we kind of said, okay, now we have to actually do this. And this is where an investor would have been a huge help, because now we have to talk to the factory. We have to make 100 boards. This is Toga turning into a carpenter. And you saw the process of like how the first boards look like a tiny canoe, and now they actually turn into something that we're very proud of selling. And we had to talk to a factory in China, which is also something that people have. They have like education's based on that. There's companies that only do that, and it wasn't really in our field of competences.
And it took a long time to find the right factory. I think we were looking for a factory for a year or something like that. And just like mailing them and trying to get some kind of info that led us to believe that they could actually make it. And there was a lot of Chinese factories that just gave an Google translated response, and you can just see it right away. And that's not going to work out if you're going to explain how sticky a wax is going to be. So that was really that was a long process.
Yes.
But we found a really cool place, and they helped us a long way.
Yeah.
Also.
Yeah, and the key learnings were that we should definitely have planned this a lot better. And another learning was that it takes time. Also because we heard horror stories about getting stuff made in China, and you hear stuff where you get all the products back and they're shaped like frisbees or something. So it took a lot of time, and we insisted on getting prototypes sent back and forth and back and forth and back and forth to make sure they're right. Like there was one point we were like, okay, now it's it. We saw pictures, everything looked fine, and they were like, no, let's just get it sent over, and we got to send over, and all the stickers were 3 times the size as it was supposed to be. So it's like, okay, let's start over.
Yeah, and on the other side of that communication, you have all the backers who are pushing you to get the boards ready. So it's kind of like, oh fuck, should we do it? Should we not? Get the next sample pack.
Exactly. We found that what works really well is to make videos of whatever we want, so they can see exactly how the stickers are supposed to stick and how the wax is supposed to look. And it's harder to get something wrong by then. So that's something we can really recommend. You saw Toke cutting wood. It's his new job, new title.
We never thought really that people would buy the wooden boards because they were. We knew how to make them, and it was something that we had done all along. So it felt natural that they would be on the Kickstarter, but the other boards just seemed more like surfboards, so we thought that was like the right thing. And then all of a sudden, we're there in the end, and we have to make 100 of them. And I just remember we were standing at a Christmas party or something like that. And we were at some kind of family party, and I was just like kind of standing looking into the air and just didn't know what to do, because I had the day before tried to make about 5 boards, and it just took like forever. Because at that point I just had sandpaper going around in this one machine and just one log of wood and just kind of shaping it down to making it look right. But then our uncle came over and started saying, "Oh, I saw your Kickstarter project. It looks really cool, and if you need any help, just tell me, because I have some experience." And I didn't know that he was like the guru of making finger surfboards. But that's also one of the cool things, that you just kind of you realize what people can actually do. And in this case, it was just I didn't know what was going to happen. But I went up to his workshop, and then I kind of stayed there for a month, and he just became like this Yoda figure who just took me through everything, and all of a sudden, we're steam bending ash wood and with these little ovens that we built, and using kind of like 6 different machines to like carve it down just right, so it's like the perfect shape.
This is the first time he's back in the city.
Yeah. It's good to be back. But that was great. That made us actually stay just within the deadline of our wooden boards.
But then another thing that actually takes up a lot of our time now is to stay on people's radar, because it's still a PR job, and we still have a 0 budget for PR. And that's really important not to forget that Kickstarter is still, your Kickstarter project is still open. So you can go now and check out our project even though it's closed. And you still have the connection with your backers through Kickstarter. So it's actually a great social media for engaging with them and keeping them interested. but obviously, this is also important, like right before your Kickstarter campaign ends, have a website ready so that you can lead attention onto. Because there's still going to be people who heard about it, and they're going to they want to buy your product, but they can't if there's no place to buy it, right? And they can't back it anymore. So it's important to have a website up with a web shop. We used Wix, which is really easy to set up. And then we could just put a quick URL on our Kickstarter pages that we got fully funded, but you can still have a chance to buy a board at www.fingersurfing-succes.com.
Yeah, and it's really important that you post that on your wall before your Kickstarter ends, because when it ends, you can't post anything more. You can make updates and comments, but you can't post anything on the wall. So it's really important to add your website at the top of your Kickstarter campaign in the end.
And I think this is also something that we kind of stumbled into, mostly from customers and how they treated us. Because in our mind, we're still two brothers making fingersurf boards. But when we get emails from customers, they talk to us like we're a big corporation. You know, like we're the fingersurfers now. And it's something we have to keep in mind, that we are a company now with responsibilities. But what's really important is to keep the personal tone that you have from the Kickstarter campaign. Because now's the chance to act like the customer support that you always wanted, that you met when you talk to companies. And we had some great conversations with people who called us and they were pissed about they didn't get their product, and they were talking about like, what kind of farce is this? And we're like, we're sorry, we sent your board right away. Maybe we can figure something out for you. And then he just turned around completely and become a really nice person. And he was just a nice guy.
I had an email correspondence. What is it called? Email
Correspondence.
Correspondence. Yeah, that's a word. With a guy who started out saying something like, "Come on, where's the boards?" And the last remark he sent yesterday was, "I like that, player."
Becomes a player. But it's I don't know if I put it, but it's something that was kind of daunting from when we got funded, was that we got all the money, but it was actually a commitment to 1,000 people who invested in us, and that was like, okay, now we can't let them down, and that's something that we continue to try to do. That, but it's also important to keep in mind that when you get funded, then that's actually when the journey starts. So it's not like maybe we thought a little bit like, okay, we're just getting Kickstarter and great, then there's Fingersurfers. It's like actually the beginning of a new chapter in your life if it gets funded. So really quickly, besides from all those things, when you think about whether you should get an investor or get crowdfunding, I think it's important, that's our recommendation, that you take a look at your own goals and your own product. Does it feel like a Kickstarter project? Does it feel like something that would never happen if you didn't, crowdfunding wasn't available? It can't be like a business-to-business rubber ring, because it's not really the spirit of crowdfunding. And if you're just in it for the money, it's much better to get an investor and get the money and get started building your business instead. And another thing is, we actually spent a lot of time on this. We spent a lot of time in the short term getting funded, and we spent a lot of time afterwards getting the product out, making PR for it, and just it takes a lot of time to package 1,000 fingersurf boards. So it's a really big investment in time, but it also means that you need to have passion for it, because otherwise, it's a shame if you get funded and then it dies because you kind of want to keep your other job, and just want to do it on the side, because it is a commitment, and now it's out there, and hopefully it'll be out there. But that's also the fun part of it, because this is a chance to really change your life and work on something that you always dreamed about. Yeah, of course you need an American ex. Or you can borrow ours.
Ours?
Brothers. But we say if you have passion for the idea and it feels like a Kickstarter project, then here's your chance to get it funded, make it happen. And I think something that we really appreciated from doing a Kickstarter campaign was, obviously we got a lot of money for it that we could make our project happen for, but we got to talk to a lot of people who like surfing and who like this culture and who are basically the same people as us from all over the world. And it's been amazing to have these conversations with people and get new friendships from all over the place. So that's it. Look forward to seeing your projects and backing them. Thank you.
Should we get a microphone? And maybe if there's questions?
That depends on how much time we have.
Yeah? Okay. Does anybody have questions?
We answered everything.
Yeah?
Do you have any insights or any info on how big a percentage of the backers was through your own network, or Facebook or LinkedIn? Or how many came from the appearance on television?
It was really cool right now when we've been sitting at home making the labels the past 2 weeks, putting them on the packages, because some of our friends said like, "Oh, we backed your project," but some of them we found out like right now, which is kind of cool. But it seems like most backers come from Kickstarter. It's a really good place for people to just hang out and just check out projects on a Sunday or at work in a lunch hour, and that's.
Sorry, go ahead. I'll just concentrate on the screen.
Yeah. So I think Kickstarter was really the place. Then, but were you asking about our personal relationships yeah.
You can.
If Carlsberg, the Carlsberg thing was somebody we knew who knew about the project, who was working for Carlsberg. So she posted it on their wall. So there was kind of a thing going on there.
We got 5.12% funded from references from Facebook, and I think that the top reason why we got funded is within Kickstarter, and I think it's important to remember it as a social media in itself. We got, from being a staff pick, we got 14%, which was and the highest was to be in the product design category, but I don't know what that means. And being a staff pick is kind of out of your hand, I guess.
We have actually a little deadline, so we have one more question, and if you have other questions, you can just meet, outside the building or somewhere else and discuss maybe on the cocktail bar later. So one last question. Yeah.
Well, I also know about Kickstarter versus Indiegogo. Are there any differences between the two platforms and which one you could choose? Well, you chose Kickstarter, but maybe it's more for you.
The difference, I think the main difference is that Indiegogo, as far as I know, they don't have a so-called provision mechanism, what is it called? They have flexible funding, so all money is going directly to the entrepreneur's account. Whereas on Kickstarter, it's all money is pooled on a secure and safe account, and if you reach the funding goal, then you will receive the money.
And I think also you only get the money if you're fully funded on Kickstarter, whereas on Indiegogo you get the amount pledged, which is a good thing, and you don't need an American bank account or X.
Yes, that was it.
Thank you very much.